time to talk about Yeezy. Velshi and Ruhle in front of you on MSNBC. President Trump used a question about the rapper Kanye West to repeat a familiar talking point this morning. Listen.
Kanye looks and he sees black unemployment at the lowest it's been in the history of our country. He sees that stuff and he's smart. And he says, you know what? Trump is doing a much better job than the Democrats did.
Chief labor economist Kanye West. All right, let's take a look at the numbers for fact's sake. African-American unemployment hit its peak for the decade in March of 2010, 16.8%. Little surprise here. The country was in the middle of a recession, and when their unemployment rates are high, black unemployment in America tends to be substantially higher. To the president's credit, African-American unemployment hit its lowest point for the decade under Trump in December of last year. It hit a low of 6.8%, down an entire 10 points from its peak. But come January of this year, it shot back up almost a full point to 7.7%. It's finally settled down at 6.9% for the past 2 months. Not quite the lowest point, but very, very close. Here is the important part. How many times can we tell you this? This is the overall unemployment rate in America. I always make reference to March 9th, 2009. That was the worst of the recession. Take a look at this. This was the recession, lots and lots of unemployment, getting to 10%, and then all the way down here, and this is when the Trump administration started. In fact, you even see it leveling out around here. Donald Trump can't take credit for this. This has been the direction since long before Donald Trump took office. Despite what the president would have you believe, and he keeps on saying it, his policies are doing very little to help things along, which is why, for instance, he likely won't take credit if unemployment begins to tick back up. And I should also note that black unemployment is still well above the national average. All right, for more on this, let's bring in Roland Martin, TV host of and managing editor of TV One.
One more point quickly.
Yeah.
So the president lied. He's lying to the audience. He's lying to the American people. And I'm reading our colleague here, Hugh Hewitt, saying, listening to real Donald Trump having fun and swinging from the hips on Fox and Friends, wondering why he hasn't been doing this more. This works. He's the best promoter of his own record. And people, Hugh Hewitt, as a fellow journalist, he is the best promoter and salesperson. Are you telling us it's a great idea that the president lies and he should do it more often?
But on the issue of black unemployment, Roland Martin, here's the thing. This is one of those areas. It's funny because the president lies outright sometimes. This is just one of those things he's taking weird credit for that he shouldn't. I don't know. What do you think of that, Roland?
Well, very simple. This is a guy who somehow ended up on third base walking into the White House, and he thinks he hit a triple when, in fact, no. President Barack Obama literally handed him an economy that was on the rebound. And, in fact, this is the same economy that Trump was constantly trashing during his presidential campaign. The fact of the matter is, if you cite that number, 6.8%. But here's the other deal. If you look at from 2010 to that period, that's actually the lowest downturn in terms of, you say, compare from one year to the other.
Yes.
You saw 1%, 2% in terms of annual drops under President Barack Obama. So actually, the decrease of the black unemployment rate has slowed under Donald Trump than under President Barack Obama. But here's what you also are not going to hear Donald Trump talk about. You're not going to hear him deal with the fact that the black unemployment rate is double that of white Americans. That's still a huge issue in this country. Also, he talks about his policies. Here's what you will not hear him talk about. In 2019, according to his budget, they want to get rid of completely the Minority Business Development Agency, which is the only federal agency tasked with increasing competitiveness among minority-owned businesses. They want to wipe it out completely. Also, I talked to folks who deal with this here. You had something else that changed, and that is another federal agency that drove resources to black-owned businesses that dealt with transportation. And so Trump has a program or policies that are not benefiting African Americans, but he wants to take credit. Why don't he deal with those issues? Deal with the fact that, according to the Economic Policy Institute, the black wealth, average black wealth is $17,409. Average white wealth of a family, $171,000. Why? Because of the home ownership rate. What hasn't rebounded under Trump?
Yeah,
black
home
ownership rate. And so it's a lot of stuff economically we could talk about with African Americans that Donald Trump does not want to deal with, and Fox and Friends has no clue to even ask him.
Next topic. The one other person who can work up a media frenzy as well as President Trump is Kanye West. We know Kanye West came out in support of the president yesterday. We don't need to cover that. But what we do is Chance the Rapper tweeting somewhat in support, you could say, Black people don't have to be Democrats. What's your reaction
Well, first
to
of all,
that?
that's true. First of all, it's true. Historically, African Americans actually, after the Emancipation Proclamation, all the way through, really, even significant numbers when it came to Nixon versus Kennedy in 1960, voted for Republicans. But the reality is, you had Barry Goldwater, who ran in 1964 opposing the Civil Rights Act, and that caused black folks to say sayonara, including Jackie Robinson, one of the most prominent black Republicans. The reality is, Republicans have also had a Southern strategy. And so the fact of the matter is, there are two parties in this country. There's Republican and there's Democrat. And if you had to make a judgment who actually appeals to African Americans when it comes to policy, it's more than likely Democrats. I've long said Republicans could actually make an effort to compete for black votes if they tried to. Unfortunately, they're scared of black people. They're the ones who are driving voter suppression. They're the ones who don't want to deal with the issue of criminal justice reform. I can show you significant policies on the Donald Trump, his Department of Justice, that do not appeal to African Americans. So yes, Chance is correct. He's not wrong, but black people are some of the most sophisticated voters in America, and they're making a judgment. GOP, Democrat, if I had to pick, ain't going to be the party of Lincoln.
I will say I have talked to a few Republican members of Congress who are very into criminal justice reform and sentencing reform and things like that. So
where's the bill?
There are some people, maybe a couple weeks.
No, where's the bill?
We'll talk about it. I think I've heard that there'll be a bill in a couple weeks. I may be wrong.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Senator Tom Cotton has been blocking that bill for the last 3 years.
Well, you know what?
They will not advance the bill.
Let's focus on it. Our hearts and minds are open. And when they do bring this bill forward, we're going to talk to you. Jared Kushner said he was going to
don't hold your breath, then you probably won't be here.
All right, guess what? We're optimists over here. We'll see what happens.
See you, Roland.